Hey everyone, I'm glad you're here. Today we're exploring a topic that many people with dissociative identities or other dissociative experiences have quietly wondered about but rarely see discussed openly. What does it mean when some parts or alters don't feel human or don't feel real at all? If you've ever felt that way, or if you're supporting someone who has, I want to start by saying this: you're not broken and you're not alone. What we're talking about today makes complete sense through the lens of trauma and neurodevelopment. Let's unpack it together. What it means when a part doesn't feel human. When someone says, I have a part that isn't human, they might mean a few different things. For some, the part feels animal like, protective, primal, or instinctive. For others, it might feel spiritual, robotic, ghost like, or even inanimate. Sometimes there's a sense of being not real, almost like a shadow or echo of a person. These experiences aren't psychotic and they're not delusional. They're symbolic and adaptive. The mind is doing exactly what it was designed to do, protecting itself when ordinary reality was too painful or unsafe to stay in. The trauma lens. Let's talk about how it happens. To understand this, we have to look at how identity forms. So, in early childhood, a person's sense of I, the feeling of being a cohesive human self, is still developing. When chronic trauma or attachment disruptions happen during that stage, the brain fragments its experiences. Different parts take on different roles to help the child survive. If the trauma was ever severe or prolonged, the brain might not have had the chance to form a fully unified human-centered identity. Instead, some parts may emerge as representations of raw survival states, animal instincts, forces of nature, shadows, objects, or even symbols. For example, a wolf-like part might hold protective aggression. A ghost-like part might carry dissociation or invisibility. A mechanical or robotic part might hold numbness and routine, surviving by shutting emotions down. These forms aren't random. They're functional metaphors created by the brain to store and express unbearable experiences safely. Let's talk about the symbolism of non-human parts. When someone says a part of me feels like a monster or I feel like a shadow, what they're describing is an emotional truth. Maybe the way they were treated, it was as though they were monstrous, unloved, unwanted, dehumanized. Maybe they had to shut down human emotion to survive. The brain doesn't separate literal from symbolic experience in the way adults wish it would. To a traumatized nervous system, being non-human can mean safety, invisibility, or control. It's the psyche's creative way of saying, I refuse to be hurt again. The neurobiological piece of this: severe trauma disrupts how the brain integrates sensory and emotional data. Regions like the amygdala, hippocampus, and prefrontal cortex stop communicating efficiently. That's why experiences of depersonalization, I don't feel real, and derealization, the world doesn't feel real, are common. When these experiences are anchored in dissociative parts, these sensations can become identity level experiences, entire parts that exist outside the felt sense of human embodiment. This isn't pathology, it's a protective adaptation. The brain says, I can't process this as me, so I'll store it somewhere else. Clinical compassion. Let's talk about how therapists can understand this. From a trauma therapist perspective, when a client says, one of my parts doesn't feel human, what I hear is there was a time when being human didn't feel safe. That statement holds profound wisdom. It tells us that part of the self learned to exist beyond the limits of ordinary identity, because ordinary identity was linked to pain. The role of therapy isn't to make the part more human. It's to help them feel safe enough to exist, communicate, and eventually reconnect with the body and system. Integration never means erasure. It means safety, communication, and mutual understanding among all parts, human or otherwise. Internal relationships and respect. In many systems, these non-human or unreal parts play essential roles. Some may protect, some may observe, and others may carry sensory or emotional memories that words couldn't hold. If you have these parts, try starting with simple acknowledgement. Something like, I see you. You're allowed to exist. I don't need to change you for me to care about you. It's common for other parts to feel unsettled or confused by non-human parts, especially if they're more logical or adult. That's okay. The goal isn't immediate understanding. It's creating safety and curiosity instead of fear or shame. Practical grounding and connection. Let's talk about a few grounding ideas for when you or one of your parts feels unreal or non-human. Sensory anchoring. Touch a texture object and describe it out loud. Temperature shifts. Hold something warm, then cool. Environmental orientation. Look around and name 3 colors, 2 shapes, 1 sound. Embodied permission. It's okay to be here right now. All you need to do is just exist. You don't have to feel human to belong. System dialogue. Ask gently what helps you feel safe in this body. If the part responds through imagery, movement, or sound, that's communication. Grounding isn't about forcing humanness. It's about reestablishing presence. If you're a support person, if you love someone with dissociative identities or parts that doesn't feel human, the best thing you can offer is respect. You don't need to understand every detail. You don't need to correct, label, or rationalize their experience. Just reflect safety. I believe you. You're real to me. You deserve comfort no matter how you identify. That validation can be life-changing. Every part, human, animal, spirit, machine, shadow, has meaning. Each one represents a creative attempt to survive and protect. None of them are shameful. If you take away one thing from this video, let it be this. You don't have to feel human to deserve healing. Healing is not about changing who you are. It's about helping every part know it's finally safe to exist. So thanks for being here, for learning, and for staying curious. If this message resonates, please share it so others you might feel less human know they're not alone.